All right. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Sean. I am the product manager for Nebula, as well as our wireless access point. So today we're talking about Nebula. As we go through today, if you have questions, there is a question and answer interface in Zoom. So go ahead and send those in using the question and answer, and I will try to answer them as we go through. If I don't get to them as we're going through today's presentation, I will get to them at the end. So we'll go ahead and start by talking about Nebula. So Nebula was the first full stack cloud network solution for small to medium business. Before we came onto the scene with Nebula, probably the biggest vendor out there selling a cloud managed solution was Meraki, which was purchased by Cisco and was very solidly aimed at the enterprise space. You also had Arrowhive, which again was primarily focused on the enterprise space at that time. They have since diversified a bit since then. So we launched all the way back in 2016 with Nebula. And at the time of launch, and this is where the full stack comes from, we did support gateways, access points, and switches. So the three main components of a network, of your network infrastructure. So this is sort of a breakdown here of what's inside Nebula. So as you can see here, we've got the hardware down there at the bottom. The main component of Nebula is this right here, the Nebula Control Center, which is our web-based interface for managing your devices. So with Nebula, rather than having to remote into your customer's network to make configuration changes, you simply log into nebula.zyxel.com. All of your customers, all of their networks are right there in the Nebula Control Center. And we do also have a mobile app. You can use it for some basic configuration, but it's primarily aimed at the installer or field guy out there, allowing you to quickly and easily add new hardware into the Nebula cloud and get it onboarded. So the idea behind Nebula is to take all the stuff that you have to buy and have to do to set up a new network and help streamline things for you, reducing some of the stuff you're going to need to buy and reducing the amount of time it takes to set up and configure those devices. So we'll go through here and hit some of the main features here in the Nebula Cloud. So the first one is it's designed to get you up and running in minutes. And that includes setting up and creating a new Nebula account. We used to do a demo back when I used to travel around where we would go to the customer's location. We'd open up a brand new access point. I'd create a new account, get that access point up and operating with a captive portal, and could usually do it in less than 5 minutes. So Nebula allows you to start setting up and configuring your products before you actually install them. In fact, you can set it up before you've even decided precisely which hardware you're going to buy. You can simply log into that Nebula interface, create your customer's network, and start configuring some of the basic settings for access points, switches, gateways, some of those settings before you've added any hardware. Now, some features, like specific switch port configuration, are going to require that you have at least purchased and received the switch before you start configuring them. But a lot of the main stuff in there, whether you're doing DHCP, SSIDs, what sort of security, those can all be configured at any point. Now, once you've received the hardware, there is a QR code on the outside of the box. You can also find that QR code on the belly of the item itself. And for access points in most of our switches, all you do is scan that QR code and then assign the product to the network that it's going to be used on. And that's all you need to do. And from that point on, all of the options are there for you. So then you can simply ship the hardware off to where it needs to be installed. And as soon as it's plugged in and has power and a working internet connection, it will reach out to the cloud, find out where it's been assigned, and will automatically download the configurations. There's nothing else that needs to be done on site to get the devices up and running. So there's nothing else that you need to buy to be able to do that. The Nebula agent is built into the hardware itself. So there's no cloud keys that need to be purchased. There's no disk images that need to be run or special software that needs to be run on a server or PC at the location or somewhere in your own data center. Everything is handled directly from the device communicating to our cloud instance. And again, it's designed to see anywhere you have an internet connection and a web browser, you have access to all of your customers and all of their networks. Nebula has, in addition to standard networking features, also offers captive portal functionality. So for instance, on our access points, doesn't matter what your gateway is, doesn't matter what your switch is, you can set up captive portal on the APs directly themselves. And we've got a lot of flexibility for what those captive portals offer. So for instance, you can do your typical, splash page with the terms of service that they need to agree to before they get onto the internet. You can set it up so people have to log in with a username and password. You can set it up so people have to register an account before they get access to the internet. Do Facebook login, lots of flexibility with how the captive portal works. And the captive portal page itself, we give you a tool in Nebula so you can sort of customize what they see. If you need more than that, we allow you to download the HTML and CSS files, modify them to your heart's content, and then upload them back to the cloud for us to host. Or if you need even more functionality, you can always refer and redirect the captive portal to a page you've created and hosted yourself. So the wireless side of things also offers smart mesh. All of our APs provide a mesh functionality. And the reason we're calling it smart is it will automatically self-heal if something goes offline, or if you've got the case where you've got a wired access point that gets disconnected for some reason, the Ethernet cable gets disconnected, it will automatically switch itself into mesh mode and find another AP that it can mesh with to maintain connectivity. We support WPA2 and now WPA3, both pre-shared key and enterprise, where you use a radius server to do authentication. We offer dynamic pre-shared key. And all of the roaming features are standard. Things like 802.11r, KV are all there for you for fast roaming for those of you doing voice or some other application where you've got very mobile users. On the switch side of things, our Zyxel's sort of standard intelligent PoE or consumption-based PoE is there. So that frees up PoE budget based on the actual utilization by connected devices, rather than reserving a chunk of your PoE budget, which is how it's standard is supposed to be done. So that's an option for you there. We have the ability to set up ACL rules on the switches, VLAN configuration, loop guards, DHCP server guard, etc. And you basically can virtually stack any switches. So you can go in and be able to modify port settings across multiple switches at the same time. Now, all updates are done over the air. That's configuration changes and that's firmware updates. So you never need to go on site to make those changes. Everything is done through the cloud. You simply log into the Nebula portal, make your configuration changes, hit apply, and it'll automatically push those out over the cloud. Same goes for firmware updates. You can schedule what time those take place, and they'll automatically get applied for you. On the VPN side of things, we make it really easy to set up site-to-site VPNs. It's as simple as just choosing the locations you want to network together, choosing the topology, and then we'll take care of all the back-end configuration. For mobile users, we have the ability to send out email scripts, which work on iOS, Windows, and Apple, to automatically configure the built-in default VPN client to be able to reach back to the office. And Nebula was designed from the ground up to allow you to manage multiple customers, multiple sites very easily. So this is a view here. This would be one of your customers if they had multiple locations. This is what you would see when you would first select your customer to manage them. You see here, you get a list of all the sites, the status of those sites, how many devices are there, how many devices are offline, how many clients are connected, etc. And then you would simply click down to the site you want to manage. You'll also notice up here at the top of the screen, there's a pull down menu. One side is for your customers, the other side is for the sites for those customers. So it's really quick and easy to switch between customers without having to leave the screen you're on and go wait for a new page to load. And this is what you see once you select one of the sites that you want to manage. We've got a dashboard here with all sorts of information on it. And this is fully customizable. You can choose what widgets are on there, what order they're on there based on what your needs are. But some of the things you can see on here is, how many wireless users are currently connected, how much PoE is being used versus the budget that's available. And then if you're using one of our security gateways with the security services, you can see things like which applications are using up your bandwidth, which users are using your bandwidth, et cetera. So here's a status view if you're looking at the wireless clients that are connected to your wireless network. And again, same thing as I was talking about before, you have the ability to customize which information is shown here. So you only need to see the stuff that you personally care about. And we have the ability to document usage over time. And you can choose up here, what period of time you want to look at. Do you see what's been going on for the last hour or the last day? You can choose that there. And you can see information here, like, is that client currently connected? Which SSID it was connected to, signal strength, which channel it was connected to, what's the brand of the wireless adapter that's being used, all sorts of good information to help you troubleshoot things on your network. Over here is what you see when you're looking at our switches. You've got this nice view up here at the top, which quickly shows you which ports are currently plugged in, what speed they're plugged in at, and whether or not they are currently consuming any of your PoE budget. And then again, you've got some tools here like pings, seeing the MAC table of connected devices, et cetera. And then down here, you've got the ability to chart over time utilization of your uplink ports. On the configuration side of things, you simply choose the ports you want to configure, and then you will get a pop-up here which shows you all the different options for things that you might want to configure, things like your VLAN settings, whether loop guard is enabled or not, et cetera. So just about everything here I've shown you up to this point comes with Nebula for free. So it's one of the big things what we run into a lot is, how much does Nebula cost? And the short answer is the core version of Nebula is absolutely free. There is no limit to the number of your customers that you can manage in the cloud. There's no limit to the number of sites those customers have, and there's no limit to the number of devices that are managed with the free version of Nebula. So unlike some of our other SMB competition where they'll give you 1 or 2 devices for free, and then after that, you've got to start paying, everything is free. So what we want to talk about here about Nebula Flex. So when we first launched Nebula back in 2016, we did it the Meraki Cisco way, whereas if you wanted cloud managed devices, you had to buy Meraki, or in our case, Nebula. And if you wanted to buy the standard stuff, you would buy the standard Zyxel, or the Meraki Cisco situation, you had to buy Cisco. We eventually realized that that was not the way the SMB space operated. So we implemented what's called Nebula Flex, where we basically decided to cancel the dedicated Nebula hardware and instead port the agent to our existing hardware or our standard hardware, and then give you the option when you use that device, do you want to manage it, a standard way through a GUI or command line or SNMP, or do you want to use the cloud? So those devices are called Nebula Flex. So when you're looking on our price sheet or website, anything that says Nebula Flex can be used in the Nebula cloud or can be used without the Nebula cloud. It's your choice. You will see a lot of products out there called Nebula Flex Pro. So Nebula Flex Pro refers to the fact that these devices come bundled with 1 year of our Nebula Professional Pack, which is an optional license which unlocks additional features in the Nebula cloud. And we will get to that in a few slides here where we'll talk about what the differences are between free and pro and plus. On the access point side of things, it's a little bit different. It's still the same. You get the choice of standalone or cloud management. If it says pro, it's still coming with 1 year pro pack bundled with it. But with access points, it also means that those APs can be managed with the built-in wireless LAN controller that's on our security products. So if you're looking for local management through a controller, you still want to look for Nebula Flex Pro in the description of the product. So just a quick rundown here of some of our more common models or families and what they are. So on the Nebula Flex side of things, it's going to be all of our access points that are basically numbered 50 to 1123. All of those models are Nebula Flex. On the switch side of things, it's our 1920 V2 series and our 1930 series. And then on our security gateways, the USG Flex series is going to be Nebula Flex. And then down here, when we look at Nebula Flex Pro, that would be all of our access points that are basically what we consider the 500 or 5000 series and higher. On the switch side of things, it's the GS1350 series, the GS2220 series, and the 3800s. And then on the security side of things, our USG Flex security gateways, which are bundled with 1 year of UTM services, also will include 1 year of ProPack bundled with them. And then the ATP series will have 1 year bundled with them as well. So now we'll talk a little bit about the licensing. So again, standard version is free. And then we offer a plus pack and a pro pack, and we try to normally sell those as an annual license, but there are monthly options available for you. Now, the key thing to know when it comes to licensing is in Nebula, we have what are called organizations, and each organization can have multiple sites. In order to use the Plus or Pro Pack, you need to have a valid license assigned to each device in that organization. So if you start adding licenses, you've got 10 devices, you only add 9 licenses, it will not convert over to Plus or Pro Pack until you add that 10th license. Now, if those licenses are expiring or you add a new device that doesn't have a license, you are given a 15-day window before the network drops back down to the free version. So you've got that little extra window there, a little over 2 weeks to be able to add the license that you need to be able to maintain the Plus or Pro Pack licensing. After that, it'll fall back to the free version. So we'll talk here about some of the main differences and similarities between them. So all of them give you access, like I said, to unlimited number of devices and customers and sites for you to manage. All of them have our zero-touch auto deployment, where you simply plug in the device, it reaches out to the cloud, and if it's been set up or told it's going to be used in Nebula, it'll automatically put itself in Nebula mode. Firmware updates are done free in all versions, and you can schedule for firmware updates using the free version. All of them give you access to our Android and iOS app. Now, one of the areas where we start seeing some differences here is when it comes to logs and stat information. The free version of Nebula will only store 24 hours of logs in the cloud. Plus Pack is going to store a week's worth of information in the cloud, and then the Pro Pack is going to store a year's worth of logs in the cloud. Now, Nebula does still give you the ability to export your logs to syslog. So if you need more than 24 hours on the free version, you can always set up your own syslog server and have it export the logs to there. The other differences here would be how many admin users you can have per organization. So the free version gives you 5 different admin accounts. Plus version gives you 8, and then on the Pro Pack, there is no limit on those. And then when it comes to user authentication, we have a cloud-based authentication server you can use. So if you are using that, you are limited to 50 entries in that cloud authentication server. Plus Pack gives you 100, Pro Pack, it's unlimited. And again, if you don't want to use the cloud authentication server, but you do want to do authentication, you can still use a Radius server with no limitations as far as the number of users go. All of them give you access to the core features configuration on different types of devices. So most things that you want to do, you should be able to do with the free version as far as configuration goes. All versions give you MAC filtering, 802.1x authentication. All versions give you captive portal, including captive portal authentication. And then from there, we start unlocking additional features. So what are some of the additional features that you get with Plus and Pro Pack? One of them is advanced firmware scheduling. Free version gives you basic firmware scheduling. Advanced firmware scheduling gives you the ability to get really granular with your schedule and set up different schedules for different types of devices, different schedules for individual devices, et cetera. So you get more flexibility there. A big one here with the Plus and Pro Pack is the reporting. We give you the ability to generate reports automatically and send those to an email that you specify. If you're sending these reports to your customer, you can add your logo to those emails, so you're getting some branding when they see that. We have what's called automatic topology view, which goes through and will automatically create a graph showing you how the different devices are connected together. and some other features like that. So we've got some slides that cover some of these in a little bit more in depth, but it gives you things like our Wi-Fi health monitoring and our AI machine learning for optimizing your wireless network, advanced AAA features on the on using Radius or doing dynamic pre-shared key, the ability to back up and restore certain configurations, the ability to clone existing sites or customers, things like that. So here's our machine learning. So using the Pro Pack here, you get access to this. So basically we monitor all of the connections over time of all of the client devices. And then we look at what's going on and try to make some smart decisions on the wireless settings automatically to optimize things based on what we are seeing as the actual user behavior and any problems we are seeing with those users on the network. If you're doing IPTV, which is probably a really small number of you, we have the ability to do a similar sort of thing with IPTV, where we will monitor those IPTV connections and we will say, hey, we've noticed some drop frames, we've noticed some stutter. This is what we think is what's causing it. Here's what we suggest you change in your settings to be able to optimize things for you. Here's that automatic topology view I was talking about, where you can see, which devices are connected to which other devices to help you with troubleshooting. So that's it for Plus and Pro Pack. Now that chart that was up there, which has all the different features, that is available on our website. That is also something your sales guy can send to you. So if you want a copy of that, they can absolutely provide that link for you. So now we'll talk about a different type of license, and this is called the MSP pack. As the name implies, this is something that's an optional license that's aimed really at those of you that are MSPs with a lot of customers that you are actively managing. So it unlocks some additional features for you. One of those features here is the MSP view. So this gives you a visual representation of all of the customers you're managing and gives you a snapshot idea of which ones are using the free version of Nebula, which ones are using the paid version, if licenses are going to be expiring soon, how many sites they have, etc. It also unlocks some other things here for you. So now the MSP license, whoops, hopefully you guys can still hear me. The Pro and Plus Pack licenses were assigned to individual devices in an organization. In the case of the MSP license, it is assigned to an individual admin account. And the features it unlocks unlock for all organizations that user has access to when they are accessing it. So if you have two admins and you only have the license on one, only that one with the license is going to be able to access these extra features. So just keep that in mind. But it works across all of the customers that you are managing. So some of the other things it does for you here, it gives you that MSP view we just showed you. It gives you the ability to add your own branding to the Nebula dashboard. So if you have users and you're giving them access to either make their own configuration changes or to log into Nebula just so they can see status of things going on, you can then add your branding into that Nebula interface so they see your logo. You can remove our support details and replace them with your company's support details. Probably the biggest feature though that people buy this for is the ease of being able to manage your admins. So with the regular version of Nebula, you add admins and you say, okay, this guy can manage these sites or these organizations. With MSP version, you can create teams and assign users to those teams and then control which sites those teams have access to. So if you've got a lot of admins or a lot of employees that you need to manage, who has access to what, the MSP unlocks teams, which helps simplify managing a large number of admin accounts. And then you've got the ability to synchronize certain types of information across different customers that you have. And then one other feature it does unlock is it unlocks the ability to generate push notifications across all of your customers, even those that are using the free version of Nebula, where that's normally something that requires the Plus or Pro Pack to get those notifications. If you have the MSP license, you will get those notifications across all of your customers, regardless of whether they're using the free or paid version of Nebula. So then Next thing I want to talk about is security licensing. So these are the licenses that you would apply to a security gateway. So these are primarily like your UTM licenses, right? So depending on which hardware you're using as your gateway, we have different licenses. I know it's a little confusing. And again, this has nothing to do with whether you're using Plus or ProPack, has nothing to do with whether you're using MSP. These are their own licenses for providing security on the gateway. So if you're using one of our older NSG gateways, we sell the NSS security pack. If you're using a USG Flex series product, we sell the UTM security pack. And then if you are using the ATP, it's the gold license. So each version of our security gateways has their own individual licensing for them, because they each have different sets of features that they make available for you. So for instance, the USG Flex here gives you web filtering, intrusion detection and prevention, application patrol, anti-malware, secure reporter, etc. Whereas the old NSGs just give you access to IDP, application patrol, and content filtering and antivirus. So different stuff. We also have something which is called our secure Wi-Fi license. And what that does is it allows you to take one of our Nebula managed access points and turn it into what's essentially a VPN gateway for you. So it provides an easy way for you to provide VPN access to users working from home without running into some of the issues that you run into with trying to maintain and keep their computer configured properly, or so you don't have to give them a dedicated VPN appliance, which may end up in a double natted situation behind their ISP provided gateway. So we just have this here. You buy this license, you can then apply it and designate it to one of our APs. You give your employee, your remote user there, the access point. They plug it into their existing gateway, and it makes a VPN tunnel back to the main office. Now it has a special SSID, which has that VPN access. So they've got to connect to that special SSID. And to make sure that SSID is safe and you don't have other people in the house jumping onto it, it does require you use 802.1x authentication, and it requires you to use two-factor authentication. So once you've logged in using those methods, then you have access to that VPN tunnel. I think Tri talks about this a little bit more detail in some of his security presentations. Now we also have something which we launched just this year called Connect and Protect, or CNP. And this is security licenses just for the access points. So what often happens out there is, right, you have a customer, they have a gateway that they've already got. Maybe it was provided by their ISP. Maybe it was provided by a different VAR in the past. It's working. It doesn't support UTM features, and they don't want to replace it or add a fairly expensive UTM box just to add UTM services to their existing network. So this is a license that you can apply to our access points, and then our access points will have a lightweight UTM feature for that wireless network. So it's based on IP reputation. And it provides things here like the ability to block sources of spam, botnets, phishing sites, web pages that are known to have host phishing or are known to have malware hosted on them, etc. So it allows you to go through and block those types of sites, again, just for your wireless users and just on the APs that have this license applied to them. The standard CNP license works on our NWA 1123 ACV3, the WAC 500, and the WAC 500H. We also offer a CNP Plus license, which has that same filtering and also gives you the ability to do application level bandwidth throttling. So you could go in and set, limits for Netflix or YouTube so they don't eat up all your bandwidth watching 1080p or 4K streams. You can limit that. And that works with our NWA 110AX, NWA 210AX, 510D, 610D, 630, and 650S. It does not work with the Wi-Fi 6E access points we just recently launched. So that, guys, sort of ends our overview here when it comes to Nebula. So we do have a live demo for you. If you want to play with it, you can simply go to nebula.zyxel.com, click Get Started, and there should be a button there that'll take you over to the demo site that you can check out. If you are one of our VAR partners that are a member of our partner program, you can reach out to your salesperson, and they can hook you up with a 60-day hardware demo that you can play with in your lab to test it out. And then lastly here, I've been asked to share with you the fact that most of our webinars, including today's, do get recorded, and then we upload them to our YouTube channel. There are lots of different Zyxel YouTube channels out there because we're a global company and each country gets their own, as does the corporate office. So for the US webinars, you will find them at Zyxel America channel. You'll also find video case studies on there and other information, walkthroughs on how to do things. So check that out. And then we are on LinkedIn under Zyxel US channel. So if you have any questions, go ahead, use the question and answer interface to send them in. And you can always reach me directly at seanr@zyxel.com. Sean is spelled SHAWN, then the letter R at zyxel.com. So Bruce has a question. Is there a way to remove a client from an access point? I want to say no. I don't think there's any way to like just kick them directly, but you could set up something like MAC filtering. And I think you can, I think you can go in there and set the MAC filter list just to reject. So you could add their MAC address to that and then it would bump them off and keep them off. I believe that is correct. If that's something you really want to know, go ahead and email me or reach out to your salesperson with that question, and I can confirm the answer to that. It isn't something I personally have played with, so I would need to double check that for sure, but I believe what I said is correct. Okay, I'll stick around for another minute, but that's the only question I've seen that's come in. So again, thank you for joining us today. I appreciate you giving me some time. And feel free to reach out to me, give me feedback. You guys have ideas for other webinars that we're not doing, check them out. We do 1 to 2 webinars every week. Our sales engineer does some more technical hands-on type trainings, how to do this, how to configure that. I do webinars on our wireless. I do some general wireless overview. Here's our product selection, but I also do some stuff like Wi-Fi 101, where we talk a lot about how Wi-Fi works and some of the common problems people run into. Try does stuff on switches and security gateways. So be sure to check those out. I'm not getting any more questions, so I'm going to go ahead and end today's webinar. Again, thank you for joining us today.